We started, are we good? Good morning, everyone. Daily distraction here from Monday Morning Cooking Club. We are going to make, I am going to make matzo balls, but I've got the Monday Morning Cooking Club girls with me in spirit. Each is in her own home, obviously, and we can't be together at this time. I just want to introduce my new crew this morning. I have got Jake Goldberg on camera, so you're allowed to critique his camera abilities during or after the session, because he might want this as a permanent thing during this coronavirus time. And on the questions, we have got Bibi again. Thank goodness for you guys, you're a great help. Anyway, so we're going to make matzo balls, and I just want to start by saying I acknowledge that everybody's mothers or grandmothers are usually the best for you. So people love what they've grown up with. My mother always over the years made a beautiful Seder. Her specialty was her brisket, and her matzo balls were mostly pretty good. My sister has taken over the matzo ball mantle, and she is now an exceptional matzo ball cook. You'll all agree. My family will all agree with that. And my matzo balls are mostly pretty good. And you know what? One thing with matzo balls is that you've got to accept that they're not factory made. Sometimes they're a bit harder, sometimes they're a bit softer, but the way we like them are soft and fluffy and a bit spongy. So that's the aim of our matzo balls. So let's start with the ingredients that you'll need. This makes about 15 to 20 small to medium matzo balls. You start off with matzo meal. This is my favourite brand, and this is not the ABC, so I'm actually allowed to say that. And it is coarse matzo meal that we're using. If you can't find it, you need to find matzo. And with your matzo, which is unleavened bread, you need to put it in the food processor, and you need to process it until it looks like this, okay? So, Jake, do you want to just zoom in and have a look? This is what it could be. This is coarse matzo meal, okay? We need 185 grams of matzo meal. This recipe comes from The Feast Goes On, our second book, and the recipe comes from Lena from the Balaclava Deli. So if you're in Melbourne, you can actually order them from her, but we're going to make them ourselves. So we've got 180 grams of matzo meal, which I'm going to put into a large mixing bowl.
While you're talking about measurements, Candy wants to know if she can double the recipe.
Yes, so the original recipe is actually doubled, and it uses 9 eggs. So everything else is doubled, what I'm going to do now, but instead of 10 eggs, we're going to do 9 eggs for a whole packet of matzo meal. Yeah, good question. Thanks, Candy. Okay, we've got the matzo meal. Then we need, in another bowl, 1/3 of a cup of oil, and this is a plain, unflavoured oil. So you're not going to use your extra virgin olive oil here. You could use chicken schmaltz, which is chicken fat, that I would suggest you just melt it a little bit. You don't want it too hot, just to measure it. I'm looking for my cup measure, which I think is over here. Sorry, I'm back in a second. Okay, so 1/3 of a cup of oil.
Jenny's watching from work. Hope you can multitask, Jenny.
Hey Jenny, have you got your matzo meal on your desk? I hope so. And then we're going to do water. We're going to do 1/2 cup of water. Now, the recipe in the book, I believe for double the recipe, has a different water measurement. And over the years, we have found that the matzo meal has changed. And that's the only slightly tricky thing about this recipe, is that you need to gauge by the mixture, and you'll see in a minute, how much water to add in. But we're going to start with 1/2 cup of water. So that's 1/3 of a cup of oil, 1/2 cup of water. And now we're going to do the eggs. We're going to do 5 small-ish eggs or 4 giant eggs. Normally we buy giant eggs, but eggs are hard to get at the moment, so we take what we can get, and we've got smaller eggs today. So I'm going to separate them in a glass first, and I'm going to pop the whites in there and the yolks in with the water and the oil. So you'll just have to watch me separate them, and I know everyone's got their own way of separating, and this is mine. Judge if you will, but this is how I'm going to do it. Are there any questions while we're separating eggs? I'm happy to answer anybody's Pesach questions, Easter questions, what you want to cook, what you need to cook. Okay, so there's a bit of shell in there. I'm just going to get that out, because I don't think we really want shell in our matzo balls.
Some extra crunch.
Extra crunch, exactly. Sorry. Actually, a very good way to get shell out is using the half shell, but today I did it like that. Okay, so that's 1. I'm going to do 5 eggs. And in there. So I'm just going to do that. This is the second one. So with these matzo balls, they are completely do ahead. I actually think they're even better if you can do them, let's say you've got probably 2 or 3 days ahead is fine. Keep them in the water that you cook them in. They're going to cool in the water, as you'll see. I'll tell you in a minute when we cook it. And then you just leave them to cool in the water. And then you put them in the fridge just like that. Okay, should I be doing this a bit faster? Any questions? Anybody? Anybody? Any questions? Okay, it's number 3.
I'd love to know who invented the matzo ball.
I would love to know
Very
that
innovative.
too. I know, it actually is. It's for those who aren't familiar with Passover and are watching this because you want to make matzo balls perhaps for the first time, it is the most interesting festival because... Hey Winston, how are you? This is Winston. And you can tell that I normally throw little scraps when I'm cooking. I accidentally knock them off the bench and he gets to eat them. Sorry, not today. So the festival's interesting because you're not allowed to eat flour or anything that's risen or leavened. So it creates a whole challenge for the cooks of making delicious food without those ingredients, without flour. And instead we use matzah and matzah meal and a ton of eggs. I mean, I don't know how people are going to manage this year with a sort of, not a shortage of eggs, but not as many as we usually have access to. Okay, last egg. So I'm putting 5 eggs in for this mixture, this amount. If you were doubling the recipe and following the original from the book, it's 9 eggs. Okay, so that's the eggs. Just going to move these aside. All right. So, is everyone with me? We have got 185 grams of matzo meal. We've got 5 egg yolks, 1/3 of a cup of oil, 1/2 a cup of water. Move this out of the way. What I should have said and what we should have done before we started is put the water on to boil, and I'm going to do it now. So you need a saucepan for this batch about this size, so quite a good size one or bigger. If they're too crowded, it's not good. They don't like that. So I've got some boiling water I'm going to put in here. And
Corey's wondering how many matzo balls this will make.
Okay, so it makes about, I think I said 10 to 15 earlier, but I actually mean, I think I said 15 to 20, but it's probably around 20.
Okay.
Depends how big you make them. Some people like really huge ones. Some people like moderate sized ones. Give or take 20, let's say. So I'm going to put that on. I'm going to put some salt. I'm going to generously salt this water.
Do you want to make sure you have a big enough saucepan so they're not like crowded?
Yeah, 100%. So you need a very big one. This is the right size, which is like a half a normal stock pot size for this batch of matzo balls. And if I was doubling the recipe, I would use 2 of them or a giant stock pot. Okay, so we're going to let that come to the boil. I should have done that first, but anyway. Okay, this can go aside. All right. So the first thing we do is we keep those separated, because if I was to mix them together now, it just would make it too dry. So that's the last thing. The first thing we're going to do now is start the egg whites, and it's going to be noisy for a minute. I'm just going to add a little, I haven't actually put salt in there yet. I'm going to add a pinch of salt to the egg whites as we mix them.
Nadine asked what oil you use.
Okay, so let me just put in, I'm going to actually add my teaspoon of salt into the matzo ball mix as well, before I forget. Okay, so we really like this supermarket brand Azalea grapeseed oil. I think it's a really good, reasonably priced, every sort of use oil. All we have in the kitchen is this and olive oil. So that's the oil we use. Okay, so we're going to whisk these until, good camera work, JP. We're going to whisk these until just about stiff peaks form. You don't want it too dry, so I'm just going to whisk that. I don't know if you can still hear me. Maybe come a bit closer because of the mix. Sorry, is that going to be not too close though? And this might seem more complicated than your usual matzo ball mixture, but really it's not. like anything, and we say this a lot when we talk about our books, is that the first time and maybe the second time even you make something, it's a bit, seems hard, seems complicated. Third time, you'll just nail it and do it without thinking, and this will become your don't think about matzo ball thing, and you'll see it's really good. Okay, so this is whisking together. So remember, we've separated the eggs, we've got the whites in here with a pinch of salt, and we're whisking. 5 eggs, 185 grams of matzo meal, a third of a cup of oil, a half a cup of water, and a teaspoon of salt. If you've got chicken schmaltz, which is chicken fat left over from your soup making, then you can by all means use that. Okay.
Amanda wonders if it can be mixed in a Thermomix.
I am really, thanks Amanda, and thanks for joining in. I am not a Thermomix person at all, and I have no idea about that, so I'm sorry, I can't. But if anyone else is out there and can answer it, I'd be really happy to share the answer. Okay, so I've just got this on medium speed. Like any time you do egg whites for a cake or for a mousse, you really don't want to go past this speed anyway. So, la-da-da-da-da, while that's whisking, we'll just wait a minute. And our water is on to boil. The whole thing should take you at home no more than 25 minutes to start and get them onto the boil. Okay.
Dina loves the green colour of the
it's
KitchenAid.
nice, isn't it? It's so beautiful. I love it too. A friend of ours just got a pink one, a pale pink, which is like the equivalent shade, but in pink, and it's absolutely divine, like musk stick pink. Anyway, it's lovely. Okay. In case you're wondering, we are using the whisk attachment, which is the attachment we always use for egg whites.
How long do you whisk for?
It's going to be about 5 minutes all up, I think. It's not very long at all. We want it to be just a step before stiff peaks. So now it's soft peaks. And you can see, Jake, you come and have a look here. You can see in the Mix Master that it's leaving a really good a line as the mixer goes around, which shows you that it's getting close to being ready. And in a minute, it's probably going to be ready. Okay. So let's have a look. Yep, I'm happy with that. That's great. Okay. It's lovely. Okay, so now, and I think this is quite an unorthodox way of doing it, which I quite like, is you now whisk the egg yolks, the oil, and the water, and the salt. Egg yolks, oil, water, salt. And I'm just going to grab another spatula. Sorry, I'm coming back. Okay. So I whisked all that together, and I'm going to combine it with the matzo meal. Now, that's what I said earlier, don't do this step first, because as it sits there, it'll just dry out. The matzo meal just soaks all the liquid up. Okay, so as soon as it's just come together, now I'm going to start this on low, and I'm going to do 1 spoon at a time. Don't be tempted, like I did a couple of years ago, to chuck it all in at once. It will just not work, okay? So you need to do 1 spoon at a time. Keep this on low, just like this. Okay? It's not technical, you just need a tiny bit of patience.
Want to know 2 matzo ball fun facts?
Yes?
Joey Chestnut in 2008 broke the world record for eating matzo balls, and he had 78 in 8 minutes.
Amazing.
That's a lot. And the biggest one ever created was 193 kilos, 1 single matzo ball.
Unbelievable. What did they boil it in? Like, how did they boil that? Okay, so I'm doing 1 spoon at a time. That's great. I love that. So I'd love to know how many of you are actually going to make your own matzo balls this year, because as we know, the Seder is going to be different, and we're not going to have 10 people or 15 or 30 around the table. We're going to have 1 or 2 or 4 or 6. And I think what it's doing this year, it's enabling people actually to cook things that they haven't cooked before, which I'm quite excited about. If we do look for a silver lining for this lockdown, it is that the Seders are going to be very small and intimate, and we will all connect with everybody at the table, and everyone can have a chance to cook their own matzo balls. How about that? Okay, so I'm just going to keep putting this in.
Tamara asked if the egg yolks go in the mix.
The egg yolks are in with the matzo meal. So in this mixture here, I've got egg yolks, oil, water, matzo meal and salt.
And then Glenda asked if you could do a chicken soup demo.
Actually, Glenda, very good question. We did one on last week. So if you look at our videos on the Facebook page or on our YouTube channel, you'll see the chicken soup demo. As well as the chicken soup Facebook Live cook along, we've also done a proper swish video about making chicken soup, which is also on our YouTube channel.
And Diana missed how much matzo meal you used.
Yep, I used a half a packet. This is a 375 gram packet, and I used a half a packet, which is about 185 grams. I think it's 1 3/4 cup, but don't quote me on that. But use a weight to measure, it's much better. Half of one of these packets. Okay? And I just keep doing 1 spoon at a time. And while I'm doing it, I'm very excited to say that the water has come to the boil. Okay? 1 at a time. Don't be tempted to chuck it all in. It'll just deflate the egg whites, which is not what you want. Okay? Keep going.
Antonia's never made before, but she's making along with you.
Ah, awesome, Antonia. I'm so happy. I hope that you're really I hope that you're thrilled with the result. I think you will be. Okay. So everyone should have their pot of boiling water going now, and adding the dry mixture in, which is the matzo meal and the yolks, 1 spoon at a time.
And how wet do you want the mixture to become?
Yeah. Well, you'll see in a minute, and I'll show you. It needs to be. It needs to be wet. If it is dry, and I'll show you in a minute, then you need to add some more water, because when we finish this stage, you shouldn't be able to form balls yet, okay? It should be too wet. So that's how wet you want it, if that's a good explanation.
And Nicole wants to know if the balls will still be okay to eat on Wednesday.
That you make today? As long as they're not with the chicken soup now, that they're just cooked on their own, I would serve mine Wednesday, as long as you cool them in the water, put them in a wide container covered with the water, and put it in the fridge and refrigerate them well. I think they will be fine.
Couple more questions. Michelle wants to know if you can freeze them.
Yeah, you know what? It's a really good question, Michelle. And I think I've never frozen them, but I'm about to freeze a batch that I made last night, and I'm going to freeze them for the first time. Marilyn freezes hers, and people say it does work. So yeah, I think it's worth trying. And you don't freeze them in the liquid, apparently. You freeze them in just as they are. I'm going to do it in a plastic tub. So here's the mixture. Now, as you can see, and this is, I think, the most important step, you could not form a ball out of that now, okay? It just is too runny. So now it has to sit probably for about 10 minutes. In the book, originally, it says 30 minutes, but that's a double batch. I think in about 10 minutes, we'll be able to do it. So you've pretty much got me now for 10 minutes to ask me any questions that you've got, or just chat generally, or I could just tell you about our Pesach Seder. I can tell you about our new book, but if anyone's got any questions, then please shout out.
Judy wants to know, what if you don't have a mix master?
Yeah, so easy. All you need, well, you need a bit of strength, you need a bit of muscle strength, because you're just going to do it with a whisk and a bowl. So you're going to whisk the egg whites in a bowl, like probably this size, and then you're going to, just in case you're wondering why the camera's moving, Jake's just manoeuvring himself so he can sit down. That's good. Are you comfortable now? So I would do the whites in a big bowl by hand, and it'll just, you'll have to rest a few minutes, every few minutes, because your arm will get sore, and then just do the rest, and add a spoon in and give it a whisk of this, and a spoon of the mixture and give it a whisk, and it's perfect. You don't need the mix master, but it's good for people who just don't want to stand there whisking.
Jason also said that he made the chicken soup and it was delicious. It tasted like real chicken soup.
Oh, so happy to hear, Jason. Thank you for joining in. And I think the thing about the simple chicken soup is that it's got like 4 ingredients, and it really celebrates the chicken. It tastes like chicken, and it is a golden, wonderful soup that everyone will be happy with. So go to our YouTube channel or our Facebook video tab to find those videos.
And on the cover of your new book, what's the babka recipe?
Ah, okay. So the CoverGirl, it's actually the CoverGirl brioche. It's actually a poppy seed brioche. Where is that book?
It's here.
Okay. So this is the new book, and that is a poppy seed brioche, and it is absolutely fantastic. It's a proper brioche. You make a dough and then you add in softened butter and you make a gorgeous dough, and then you make this poppy seed mixture, which is sort of a standard Eastern European poppy seed mixture that's used for strudels and hamantaschen, where you cook your ground poppy seeds with milk and sultanas and a bit of sugar, and you boil it on the stove till it's all absorbed, and then you let it cool, and that's the filling of this one, and it is very, very good. And I actually want to make it as soon as Passover is over. I'm going to be making that one.
Sharon has a tip about freezing. She says what she's done in the past is freeze them on a baking sheet, and then when frozen, pop them into a plastic bag. That way they don't stick to each other.
That's a very good idea. Thanks, Sharon. Sharon? Yeah,
Yep.
That's really a very good idea. So Sharon, you've just heard what Sharon said. That's a great idea, and I'm going to do that with my matzo balls that I made last night. Put them on a baking sheet in the freezer, or whatever fits in your freezer, till they're frozen, and then put them in a bag. I mean, I use that method also for, we have these anchovy twists in the new book, which are beautiful sour cream pastry with an anchovy and twisted. And the beauty of them is you can make them raw, twist them all, and then you can freeze them and pull them out whenever you have someone visit. Like, remember the days when we had visitors? Well, one day we'll have visitors again, and you can then pop them out of the freezer, and that's a very good way of freezing. And then you put them in a plastic bag.
Got a bit of a backlog on questions.
Oh, okay,
now.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Ricky says she's living overseas. How can she purchase the new book?
Okay, it depends where overseas. So in the UK, it is, yay, going to be released on Amazon UK on the 16th of April, which is really soon, and we're very excited about it. So anyone in Europe, UK, Israel can get it from Amazon UK, and Americans and Canadians, I'm just so sad to tell you that yours isn't coming till November. I know, out of my control. I'm so sorry.
Venetia, who's the person who asked about the front cover of the new book,
Yes.
wants to confirm that that exact recipe is also in the book.
Yes, Venetia, that recipe is in the book. It is on page, let me see, lucky I have my glasses on, poppy seed brioche 192. It's a beautiful recipe with a beautiful story, and Lila Cohen, whose recipe it is, was so thrilled that her cake is on the front cover. So there's a proper picture of it. Can you see that? And it is on page 192, and it's a really good recipe.
And Lauren is wondering if these matzo balls are more dense than the ones with soda water.
I don't know. I can't answer that because I haven't tasted the ones with soda water. These are not dense matzo balls at all. I mean, some years they're a little more dense than others, but for various reasons, but they're not a dense matzo ball. And I know that people, I think Marilyn maybe uses soda water in hers to make it lighter because that's what her mother did, but we don't. And, you know, try these and see what you think.
Tamara also has said that her mixture is a little bit sticky. Is that okay?
Yes, it is sticky. Sticky how? I mean, sticky as in you can't touch it yet. You can't, you know. I think, okay, so have a look now at the mixture. It's been a few minutes. And already, give it one fold. You don't want to mix this too much. You don't want to work it too much. I think it's ready now, and it's only been sitting on the bench for maybe 6 minutes. So I'm just going to move this out of the way, and then I'm going to show you how we roll them. We need some cold water. Just going to get some cold water. Okay, so I want you to see, Jackie, can you give us a bit of a close-up? This is the texture you want, okay? It's not solid, but it's very much stuck together. The liquid's been absorbed, and I think that's the perfect consistency to roll matzo balls. You could leave it maybe another 5 minutes and it will be fine. Boiling salted water right next to you. Clean hands and some water. The secret, I think, of rolling a good matzo ball is to be very light. So I'm going to take about that much. And with wet hands, I'm not even pressing. I'm really not pressing. It's very, very, very light, okay? And into the water. Again, wet hands. See, what you don't want to do is that. You don't want to compress it. You don't want to do that. That's not going to make a good matzo ball, okay? So light. You can make them whatever size you want. They are going to expand. This is probably a medium matzo ball. Again, very light, not compressing it. Would you call that golf ball size? I would say that's a golf ball.
Samantha wants to know if you could quickly run through the ingredients again.
Yes, sure, with pleasure. Okay, so we have got 185 grams or half a packet of matzo meal. We're using Solomon's coarse matzo meal, which is our preferred brand. And if you don't have matzo meal, you can just put matzo in the food processor. So I've got half a pack of matzo meal, 5 egg yolks, a third of a cup of oil, half a cup of water, and a teaspoon of salt. And that's it. And follow the method I've just done, and now we're rolling. You want this water to be boiling, to really be boiling.
And you've put salt in the boiling water?
I've put a couple of teaspoons of salt in the water and a teaspoon of salt in the mixture.
Alyssa wants to know what if the mixture goes a bit dry.
Okay, so if it's dry now, I would add a quarter cup of water and fold it through and until you get to this texture.
Susie asks if you've ever cooked your matzo balls in the chicken soup.
That's a bit of a controversial question, and we've debated it over the years, and I know everybody's got their own view on it. But I think it is a waste of good chicken soup to cook matzo balls in the soup, because when you cook the matzo balls, the starch or whatever it is comes out of the matzo meal and the water becomes cloudy. And the funniest thing is when my husband Danny last week or a few weeks ago when I was making matzo balls, he came down and they were in the cooking water, and he came down and he took himself a matzo ball and a ladle of water, cooking water, and he said to me, "This soup is just not as good as usual." So I think it will taint the chicken soup. What I would rather do is cook them, cool them in the water, keep them in the fridge or not. If you're having them the same day, obviously it's fine, and then reheat them in the soup. That to me will get the matzo balls nice and chicken soupy without cooking them in the soup.
Yora wants to know if you want them slightly denser, could you use less egg white?
I'm really not sure, and if I had to
Scientific
guess,
question.
if I had to guess, I would suggest that you just add another spoon of matzo meal to this exact recipe. That would be my suggestion. But I don't know. It's funny. It's such a foreign concept to me that someone would want them denser because I love them light. But so I don't know. I'd just add a bit more matzo meal. Okay. So you can see they're still boiling. I'm not going to let that stop boiling now. My hands are wet every time. And I'm trying to keep them the same size, but I'm not doing a fantastic job, but my family don't mind. Okay, so remember, the secret, I think, of a good matzo ball is to be very light with wet hands. We don't want to compress them.
Leona agrees with you 100% to never cook them in the soup. And Kylie asked, is the recipe in one of your books? Also, how much oil was it?
Yeah, so it was a third of a cup of oil, and the recipe is in The Feast Goes On, and we're making half the recipe. Just a note on that, since we wrote that book, which was 2014, we have found that the matzo meal has changed, and the mixture at the first stage, after combining into the egg white, was very dry, and you could make matzo balls straight away. So something changed over the years. I spoke to Solomon's matzo people last year, and they said that there was a different machine, or there was some difference. And so you've just got to make sure, if you follow the recipe from The Feast Goes On, that you add a bit more water, so the mixture looks like this after 10 minutes, not as soon as it's mixed. Am I making sense? Okay.
Nicole also wants to know how long the mixture should sit before you roll them into balls.
At least 10 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, I would say, and until it's rollable. Okay, until it's rollable. I think that's the answer. I know it's not a very good answer. That's the best. You don't want it dry. You want it so that you can just form a ball. And you know it's too wet if you put the ball in the water and it disintegrates. We've all had that happen to us. That means it hasn't sat long enough, okay? So I'm just about done. I haven't counted how many I've got here. Looks about 16 so far. Okay, so wet hands, again, rolling the ball really gently. I'm not compressing it. That's it. I hope that everybody is finding some silver lining in this year's Pace Up event, because it's not what it usually is for all of us. And I think that the silver lining to me is that we can all get an opportunity to cook something we haven't cooked before. You know, in my family Seder in Melbourne, we had about 50 people every year, and this is the first year I haven't gone down there. And everyone was responsible for something different. I think I might have said it before on another video we've done, but that's what, it was such an amazing thing that, you know, my mother did her brisket and potato cake. If you're interested in that, that's also on our YouTube channel. Sarah always did the fish. Hi Sarah, if you're watching, and her fish was legendary. And this year I'm going to try to make fish myself. So if you can join me on Tuesday at I think 11 or 12, I'll let you know. We're going to make gefilte fish live together. And I'm really not a gefilte fish maker, so that's going to be a new thing. And so this year's different. People aren't bringing because people aren't getting together. So everyone has to design their own Seder menu, and everyone has to perhaps make things for the first time, which I think is a good challenge. I'm taking it on and enjoying it, and I hope everyone is too. So this is the last one.
Jessie wants to know if these are going to be available for lunch. And Tori has asked, or home delivery, question mark.
Jessie, they are available for lunch, but there's no soup. Well, actually, I lied. There is a little bit of soup, but let me just go back to this for one sec. Okay, matzo balls are in. Jackie, can you come around and just have a look here? I want everyone to see this.
Mimi's query is, the first ball is cooking for much longer than the last one. Is this an issue? Yep.
Now the lid goes on, and that's it. Okay. Did you get that? Okay, so to answer that question, Mimi, it's a good question too. The original recipe, which makes 50 matzo balls, says to fill up your stock pot with the balls, and you time 20 minutes from when the last one goes in. And it probably takes 10 minutes to make a whole batch, or 5 minutes if I wasn't talking to you to make a batch. So it actually doesn't matter in the end. But now, after this is the last one's gone in, I'm going to time 30 minutes because it's a half batch. And after 30 minutes, I'm going to take it off the heat. I'm going to leave the lid on and set it aside to cool. And then open it, and you'll see beautiful matzo balls. So that's going to just boil away. And you want it to really be cooking like that. Can you see that, Jackie? You want it to be, and don't keep taking the lid off. I mean, I do a little bit. I have a little peek from time to time like this, just to check it's still boiling, because you want them to steam and boil and steam and boil.
Antonia asked if you have to turn them over in the water.
No, you don't need to turn them over. They just, because the lid's on, they're steaming and boiling, and they're just cooking beautifully. So this is one I made last night. Sorry, two I made last night. And I just wanted to show you how lovely they are in the soup, and how these are a really very good, can you see, soft matzo ball. The inside looks like that, and that's how they are. And I think it's a pretty good matzo ball, and you'll see it's easy to make. Turn that down a bit. I'm going to time 30 minutes, which takes us to 12:10. So this is it. Matzo ball, chicken soup. Remember, the chicken soup can be frozen for ages, and just keep it in small containers and make sure you label it well. We've all put things in our freezer, I mean everybody, and I still do it and say, yep, I'll remember what that is, and then 3 months later you look at it and you've got no idea what it is. So freeze your chicken soup if you make it ahead. Matzo balls you can freeze as well, we've just learnt. And I hope you enjoy them, and please, 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 if you make them, please post your pictures and tag us. We'd love to see it.
A few questions.
Yeah.
Candy wants to know how much extra water she should add to the mixture if she's using the recipe from the book.
I think the recipe from the book, let me just have a look. Okay. So the recipe on the book says, it says half a cup for double the recipe, so I would do a cup of water for that recipe.
Sandra also commented that that's what's difficult this year because you don't know when to start cooking so that everything stays fresh because usually people are bringing their own things.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges. I know. And I haven't even started planning when I'm going to do what, except for the gefilte fish because I'm doing it with you guys on Tuesday. But everything else is like, So I think today's probably a good day for everyone to sit down and make a list and look at what they're doing and when they can do it. But things like the matzo balls, ideally 2 days ahead is fantastic. 3 is okay. So that's done. Chicken soup hopefully is done already and in the freezer. And everything else you just have to plan ahead and choose a dessert that you can do ahead. There's some fantastic desserts in our new book. If you are, I think my favourite one, I think the one that I'm going to make for the family this year is George's almond torte, which is just such a great dessert because I can make it. You can make the base layers today, and you just can assemble it the day before. So it's so good. It's so do ahead, and it's just delicious.
Quite a few more questions coming through.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Just whilst you're looking.
Yeah.
Firstly, was it 30 minutes that you're cooking it for?
Yes, after 30 minutes after the last matzo ball goes in.
And I think we covered it, but will they last for Wednesday?
Yes, they will.
Okay.
As long as they are stored, so you're going to finish cooking them, you'll take them off the heat, leave the lid on, let them cool completely, put them into a Tupperware or a plastic tub, glass dish, whatever, so they're covered with the cooking water, Glad wrap, lid, whatever, in the fridge, in a cool place in the fridge. Like, you don't want it in the front, so when you're opening the door, it's getting warmer, and just that'll be fine for 3 days.
Rebecca's question is, why does it need to cool in the water?
I think if you took them out when they were finished cooking, they tend to go hard and grey. It's a weird thing. So for some reason, it just helps them become the fluffy like matzo balls that you want them to be.
After the 30 minutes, what do you do with the balls?
Okay, so after the 30 minutes, you just turn it off, take it off the heat, leave the lid on, and let it cool. Keep them in the water that it was cooked in until you eat them. Until you heat them up in the soup, I should say.
Ingrid wants to know the best tip to freeze matzo balls.
Okay, so if you go back and watch the video from the start, no, I'm joking. Well, I'm not really joking, but it was actually, there's a comment up there that says exactly, but I'll tell you again because it's actually a great tip. Sharon says to put them on a baking tray once they're cooled, or a tray separately in the freezer, not covered, and put them in until they're frozen. Then take them out and get a plastic bag and put the frozen balls in a bag, seal it, and put it back in the freezer. And then I would take them out and I would actually defrost them as you're heating up the soup. Always heat your matzo balls up in the soup because then the chicken flavour then goes through the whole matzo ball.
Tori wants to know if you said earlier that it's best to make these a few days ahead.
No, it's not best to. It just is good if you're trying to do a million things before the Seder, or if you don't want to do it on the day. But I would, in an ideal world, I would make them in the morning of the day and just let them sit in the liquid until I reheat them in the chicken soup in the afternoon.
Jessie is very excited about the almond torte. That was her request. Please make that.
Okay, so back to this is the almond torte from George Sternfeld in the new book. We have this. We are going to post the recipe for all the Canadian and US viewers and people out there who keep saying, please, 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 they want to make it and they don't have the book. And I'm feeling really sorry for them. So we do have a YouTube video, which I will share on Facebook a bit later. And I'm going to post the recipe with it so you can see how easy it is to make. So I'm going to make these layers today or tomorrow, put them away, and then assemble it on Tuesday to serve on Wednesday.
Will the recipe work okay with fine matzo meal?
I've never made it with fine matzo meal. People do. I don't know. My suggestion would be to try it and see. I know that some people do make matzo balls with fine. I just never have. So sorry, I can't help you with that one.
Do you think the difference would be that these ones are a bit more like rustic? And
Yeah. I feel that it would be too smooth, more like a, I don't know. No, for me, what I love about this is that it's got texture. And I think you just lose that texture and would be too smooth, perhaps. I don't know. Sorry. Probably would work, but try it and see and let us know. Is that it? Have we covered all the questions?
I believe we've covered all the questions.
Okay, so I really hope that we are providing some sort of distraction from these times that we're in at the moment, and I hope that the kitchen, and I said this last time, is providing some solace for everybody. It certainly is for me. So I'm going to keep coming back until you tell me to go away, and just keep bombarding you with recipes and little Facebook Lives through the weeks ahead. If there's anything you particularly want me to do, let me know, and hopefully we can convince Natanya to do something as well. She was talking to me about doing something next week, so that'd be really fun if she could do one in her house. So that's the story. If you want to order our books, I've always got to give a plug. Now for something sweet, our new book, which is out a month now. If you order it online, I will personally post it on Monday, and it will hopefully get to you next week, early next week. Happy to inscribe it to someone if you want it as a special gift. It's also available on Amazon Australia at the moment, Amazon UK in 2 weeks, and USA in November. And don't forget Booktopia, they also are selling it. And last thing is, don't forget your local bookstores, because they have copies as well, and many of them are delivering to your door. So that's it. I'm going to sign off for now. Thank you, Bibi, for your help. Thank you, Jake, for being a great cameraman.
Vicky says you're better than a warm hug, gorgeous girl.
Oh, thank you, Vicky. That's so nice. That's made my day. Thank you, everyone, and hope that was fun, and hope your matzo balls are fantastic. Bye.